Yes, good evening, everyone. This is your host, Paul Lawrence Van, and I host Wealth Academy podcast. And remember our mantra, wealth is more than just money. And this evening, we're bringing on Keith C. Holmes, and he is the author of the amazing book, Black Inventors, crafting over 200 years of success. And he's going to share some really great insight with us. And he's going to share some of his favorite inventors and inventions. And then he's going to ask me mine. And we're going to have a good time. And we're also going to try to work in a few slides as well as we go through this particular episode. So welcome everyone on Facebook, YouTube, as well as LinkedIn. We're honored to have you. And this, of course, starts Black History Month. So without further ado, I want to introduce Keith to you, and I'll go over bio. Keith Holmes, how are you doing, my friend?
I am doing well. Thank you so much for inviting me, Paul.
All right. We're glad to have you here. And Keith have conducted decades of research on Black inventors. And I know he has some inspiration for that. He's going to talk about a little bit here in the start of this interview. But he's done some remarkable things. And I've interviewed him before on my talk radio show, and we had a great time then. And I have his book that he had sent an autograph years ago to my daughter. So I want you all to see that as well. Beautiful book. And we're going to get started now. So Keith, welcome again from the great state of New York. And I want to ask, what is the inspiration for you conducting this research that is so very important in terms of Black inventors from all parts of the world? Please share that inspiration with us.
Thank you, Paul. And welcome to your guests and your audience tonight. And we're going to have a great time going over some new inventors that you might not have never heard about. And the fact that now there are over 20 Black men and women inducted into the National Inventors Hall of Fame. That's like being inducted to the NBA, MLB Hall of Fame. But what inspired me to write this book was in 1988, I was attending an event in Brooklyn, New York called the African Street Festival. And I came across a book called Black Inventors by Burt McKinley. I was so inspired by the book. I was thinking about becoming a street vendor and selling this book on the street. Sure. But I talked to my mentor, Dr. Ra Amen, and he inspired me and suggested, why don't you write a book about Black inventors? So I started on a journey, and I'm not going to keep it long, of going to the Schomburg, the Moore Spring Arm Library in Washington, D.C., going to the New York Public Library, and comprising a list of inventors. And what I quickly came upon, Paul, was the fact that most of the research that has been done has been only on the inventors from the United States. And as you know, Black people are in a lot of countries, Canada, the Caribbean, Africa, of course, Australia, Europe, the UK, Central and South America. So I expanded my research, and now I have over 15,000 inventors that I found from 70 countries and 5 continents. And just to add a little sidebar, my wife who passed away in 2020, she was the inspiration. Thank you. She was the inspiration for me getting this done. Like you, I had 3 boys and 1 girl and had to attend soccer matches, swimming events, football, live recitals. And I used to lug this computer around to try to get this project done. And my wife said, honey, you got to get this done. Stop putting this on the back burner. So from 1988 to 2008, I did my research. And then in 2008, I published this book, Black Inventors Crafting Over 200 Years of Success. So my inspiration comes from my family. It comes from my mentor, Dr. Ra Amen. And of course, it comes from all those great men and women who've made an insurmountable contribution in the area of science, technology, and innovation.
That is amazing. And again, I'm sorry to hear that your wife passed away, but knowing that she inspired you to do this, and the fact that you actually did it, it really speaks volume. I'm sure she's looking down from heaven and said, "Job well done." Job well done. Absolutely. Yes, that's wonderful. And one of the things that I want to know, how people say, "Oh, you're an overnight success." And I know when you wrote this book, now how many How much time did it take you to write this book? I know you conducted a lot of research and you continue to this day, but how much time to show people that it really takes determination, it takes discipline, commitment to get this type of level of achievements recorded the way you have?
It's interesting you say that. I mean, if I had a body like LeBron James, Michael Jordan, of
Sure.
course I would have to put in thousands of hours practicing and getting my game honed in. But like a researcher, you've got to spend thousands of hours digging up information, verifying if the information is correct or not. But yes, you have to dig deep. And for our history, as you know, there's been a lot left out of the history books. So I made sure I crossed the T's and dotted the I's. So I spent tens of thousands of hours researching to find this information. And it has been rewarding. Yeah. And we'll go into that in a little while.
Absolutely. And I tell you, when you look at it, it's in 70 different countries. And then we have the African-American women inventors. And I mean, it's tremendous. I was looking through the book today, and it's still stuff that I'm still learning because it's just so rich in terms of what it provides the reader, students, of course, that you work with and everything else. Now, one thing I want the audience to know, Keith, is that the American Express Essentials has recognized your book as one of the 10 books that people should read during Black History Month. And in this process, it also takes into account books by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., by Mrs. Coretta Scott King, and so many others, Dick Gregory and so many others. So let's share what that's like to be in that number, if you will, to be with such amazing people such as that, to include yourself.
Well, it's inspiring that American Express made my book one of the books that people should read, particularly during Black History Month, but it should be read all year round. Exactly. And if you're on the list, like Dr. Martin Luther King and Coretta King. And I have to say, with Dr. Martin Luther King, his speech, Why I Opposed the Vietnam War, he did some phenomenal research to show the economic impact that the war had on people during the Vietnam War era. But to be in that list, man, that's like being inducted into the NBA, the NFL, and the baseball. I am so honored, and I'm proud, the fact that, this work is being recognized not only here in the United States, but this is now in over 40 countries, and a number of national libraries from around the globe has recognized this book as a leading information on the inventions by Black and brown people.
Absolutely. I tell you, one thing I always share with people when I was growing up, and I grew up in North Carolina, no matter whose house you would go into, there would be a picture of Dr. Martin Luther King and a picture of President John Kennedy.
Yes.
And I tell people that. And then ironically, Dr. King, I was a young man. I wasn't even a teenager when Dr. King was assassinated. And years later, I ended up getting introduced to his wife, Coretta Scott King, here in Washington, D.C. at the Congressional Black Caucus legislative event they have each year, and got to meet her. And then years later, I interviewed their daughter, Bernice King, on my radio show. And so I would consider them like to be one of the first families of the United States as well.
No doubt. And if Dr. Martin Luther King would be still alive, his work would still be honored because this man transcends time and space. Yeah. And it's interesting that his words speak louder today than they did in 1968.
Oh, for sure. Because I read a lot of his books and speeches because I'm a speaker. So I typically want to look at someone who is really good at it. And he was great at it. And he's done some wonderful things in their family, even through Martin Luther King III. They're still out there trying to make a difference in America. So it's tremendous.
I'd like to add that what I did too in this book, I mentioned the trademarks.
Yes.
It's interesting. Dr. Martin Luther King, as well as Coretta Scott King, have streets, schools, public libraries, boulevards, buildings named after them. And it's an honor to be on the list. But trademarks are very important. And Dr. Martin Luther King was a trailblazer of not only his time, but this time also.
Absolutely, absolutely. We have so much respect for them because they earned it. They earned that respect. So,
Definitely.
one of the things I want to jump off into now, because I just love reading about these inventions that you have recorded. So, let's dig into a few of your favorite inventors and inventions that you appreciate. And we can also talk about some patents and trademarks as well. But your book, it acknowledges a lot of inventors in more than 70 countries from the year 1769 to now. And what do you consider your top 3 or 4 inventors and inventions that they've crafted?
All right. So I have a slide that we should be able to share now, and you should see it.
Sure. Let's
Can you bring
see.
that up?
All right. Let me see if I can pull that in. Uh, just 1 second.
Sure.
Okay. Let's see. Let me see if we can pull this one in. Okay. Let's see if you can pull that one up. Let's see.
Now, is this something I need to do or you need to do on your end?
Share. I put share on
Oh,
there.
yeah.
I don't see the slides themselves. However, we'll be able to see if we can get that. Okay, I see it now.
Okay, that's it.
All right, here we go. All right, Keith, let's talk about this.
All right. So I just want to go over some information while we have the time.
Okay.
You know, primary responsibility of my book was to honor the men and women responsible for great technological advances that make human and social economic possible.
Yes.
As of today, as I stated before, there are over 20 Black men, but also women now inducted to the National Hall of Fame.
And where is it located?
It's located in Ohio.
Okay.
I can't recall the exact city,
Sure.
but it's in Ohio, and it's interesting. Fortunately, in 2021, the first 2 Black women were inducted: Dr. Patricia Bath and Marion Croak. Now, Dr. Patricia Bath is responsible for laser scopes that's used for people who suffer from cataracts. And as you know, cataracts is the leading cause of blindness around the world. So her invention saved the eyesight of millions of people around the world. And Marion Croak, which we'll get into also, is responsible for voice over IP and has over 200 patents to her name.
That is remarkable.
Okay,
fantastic. Continue, please.
All right. So I want to go into, you said 3, and you know, it's hard to come up with more. 3. Yeah. But one of them, of course, as I stated, was Dr. Patricia Bath, who was born in 1942, and she passed away in 2019. She was nominated 11 times to the National Inventors Hall of Fame, and she was finally inducted in 2021. She had over 10 patents. She was an African-American woman inventor, specialized in ophthalmology, and was a humanitarian. Pioneer in the early laser cataract surgery. So
that is amazing.
And you can see, before the ophthalmologists or the surgeons, eye surgeons, had this technology at their disposal, this was something that they had to use their hands and their eyesight. And if your hands is a little unsteady when you are trying to deal with someone who has a problem with their eyes in terms of surgery, you can make an error or you can make a cut that's unnecessary. Using laser made it exact and perfect. So a lot of people benefited from the different inventions that Dr. Patricia Bath developed.
So she had a steady hand.
Very steady hand, but she had also had laser technology to assist her.
Absolutely.
Well,
that's remarkable.
That's just one person. And I have to say, Dr. George Washington Carver.
Oh, for sure.
Even though he's a throwback, he is the first Black man to be inducted into the National Hall of Fame. And that was in April of 1990. Now, one of the things that's interesting is Dr. George Washington Carver only had 3 patents, but he developed over 300 products from the peanut. He saved the South from one crop destruction. If you grow cotton over and over on the soil, it depletes the soil.
It erodes it. Exactly.
And nitrogen, and it becomes useless. You can't use it anymore. It was Carver who informed the farmers in Texas, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, South Carolina grow peanuts. They had so many different peanuts and so much peanuts in their barns and locations. They didn't know what to do with it.
Sure.
So it was Carver who went into his laboratory and developed over 300 products from the peanut. Now, if you count all of the inventions, all of the innovations that Dr. Carver developed from agrimony, the use of crops and herbs and trees and branches, if you count all of those things that he developed, he would have had over 1,000 inventions just on his name alone, more than Thomas Alva Edison, who had a brain trust of people who worked for him, and he would have those people assign those patents to his company. So what makes him different? Well, besides the peanuts, it was Carver who also grew soybeans.
Yeah.
And he was the one that first indicated that soybeans could do quite well in the soils of America. And he also said that not only soybeans being a very important crop for the United States, but he also said that cowpeas could also be used similar to peanuts and or soybeans. So I consider him one of the icons of science.
That he could come up with 300 products just from the peanut itself. That takes a lot of creativity, a lot of research, and a lot of wisdom as well.
And receptivity, because one of the things that Carver realized as an early young man, plants talk to him, and he could talk to the plants. So they unleash their secrets to him, and he was receptive enough to take those secrets that the plants were giving him and develop all these different products.
Oh, that is fantastic.
Two. And the third one, I'm going to give it to a woman, because we don't give Black women enough credit, besides all of the great work that they do in education, all the great work they do in legislation in terms of government, and also all the great work they do in the home.
Exactly.
This woman, Marion Croak, was the second Black woman to be inducted into the National Inventors Hall of Fame. Over 100 patents, close to 200. She's credited with developing voice over IP. She at one time was the vice president of engineering at Google, and previously served as the senior vice president of research and development at AT&T Labs. AT&T Labs.
Let me ask you this, Keith. Now, I said that she was born in 1955.
Right? Is that young? Yes, she is.
She's young.
She's a young woman.
That's incredible. Yeah, and I have friends that work at AT&T, but I had never heard of her before. But she's done a lot, and it's been used by Skype, Magic Jack, and Vonage. So she's all over that voice over IP for sure.
And remember when Haiti had its earthquake?
Oh yeah.
In 2005, she revolutionized how people can donate money to a charitable organization, i.e. the Haiti earthquake, raising over $22 million in pledges in this fashion. So that's three that I think make a major impact here in the United States as well as around the world.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. Yeah. So at this point, you're going to ask me my three favorites.
So who are your top three inventors?
Here we go. I'm going to start out with this lady by the name of Sarah Breedlove. Now, her name that she goes by is Madam C.J. Walker. And what happened with her, she was born in Delta, Louisiana, and her parents were enslaved and they were sharecroppers, and she was orphaned at the age of 7. And so after a period of time, she lost her hair from some scalp conditioning. And so she invented a very innovative line of African-American hair care products in 1905. And of course, she's one of the first self-made millionaires in the United States of America. And I've actually been to her museum area there in Richmond. And I've seen that, and it was very impressive. Yeah, she was way out there, way ahead of her times, like all of these other inventors. And the next person is, I had Patricia Bath on there also. So now I'm going to go to Philip Downing. So what does Philip Downing do? He had the patent for the modern day mailbox. Now, how important is that? That's so important. And he had this patent in October 27th, 1891, and that's when he invented it. And he was in Boston, Massachusetts. So the mailbox, yeah, that's very, to me, that's very important because you get letters, family and everything. So the next person is Garrett Morgan, and he was responsible for the mechanical traffic light. He was born in Paris, Kentucky, and in March of 1877, and he died in Cleveland. But he received $40,000 from this invention of the mechanical traffic light. So when we get our so we put that in the category of safety. Without traffic lights, it would really be crazy. so those are my three.
And it's interesting. I did an interview with Sandra Morgan, the great granddaughter of Garrett A. Morgan. And one of the things that's very interesting about his development of the traffic light, automatic traffic light, is the fact that that light is responsible for saving hundreds of millions of people's lives by controlling traffic around the world. If you get on the highway and drive, or you get on the byways in terms of areas that have no traffic light or do have traffic light, you can see why it's important to be able to control the flow of traffic, thus saving time, money, and at the same time moving goods from around the country. And that traffic light is used globally. It's used around the world. So thank you so much for that. All right.
Yes, we're good.
Okay. I didn't see you for a second.
I was just testing out some of these inventions here.
All right.
All right. So let's talk a little bit more in regards to if there's some other inventors and inventions that you want to talk about.
Yes. We got to talk about Mark Edward Dean.
Okay.
Just as Dr. George Washington Carver is considered the Wizard of Tuskegee, yes. I think Mark Edward Dean should be the Wizard of IBM. Over 200 patents are in his name. And he was inducted into the National Inventors Hall of Fame in 1997. And what's unique about him? Well, he developed what's called the 1 gigahertz chip. When we talk about computer speed now, we don't talk about megabytes anymore. It's always gigabytes or terabytes.
Terabytes, exactly.
What the 1 gigahertz chip did was revolutionize financing, banking, military, telecommunication, educational institutions, the internet, you name it, anything that needs speed in order to process information, the 1 gigahertz chip and other chips that have been developed since then based on this technology has revolutionized how we move information around the world. Absolutely. Can you remember when you were a young man and you used to get your check on a Friday and go to the bank and deposit your check?
Yes.
And you'd have to wait 2 or 3 days for it to clear.
The process, yes.
Well, we don't do that anymore. All that processing speed in terms of automatic checks automatically be deposited into our accounts, our ability to pay things online. Exactly. All that requires this computer speed, and this gigahertz chip is the backbone of that technology.
Mark Edward Dean, who also is a very young man.
He's a very young man. See, when you were born in the 50s, we're now saying they're young men now.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's tremendous. And of course, Dr. Drew, if I'm not mistaken, he died in North Carolina. I think it may have been Durham, and he was in a car accident, but they would not treat him with the plasma.
Well, let's correct that story.
All right, let's talk.
When I did my research at Schomburg Library, and I dug all of the articles that were written about his death, back in those days, as you know, seatbelts were not something that was mandatory in terms of driving.
Yes.
So when Dr. Drew was driving, he was in a car accident, and he was thrown from the car.
Got it.
He actually died from blunt force trauma, and not from not being able to get hospitalizations to assist in his recovery. So
Okay.
it was forced trauma, and his wife and family documented that fact. But
Okay.
we've always been hearing, and I think that's an urban myth, that he wound up dying from the very thing that he
invented. Right.
Now, blood plasma is very important because billions of people around the world who have to go to the hospital sometime in their lives have to get blood plasma. So on the battlefield and medical surgeries that have to be done.
Battlefield surgeries, yes.
All of that is important. So this man is super important when it comes to the development of blood plasma and the use of it around the world. It made the difference during World War II in terms of GIs being able to get blood plasma right on the battlefield.
Battlefield, right. Didn't have to go to the hospital. And
go to the hospital.
Even in today's combat in Afghanistan and Iraq, it was the same thing where they were able to actually take care of it right there on the spot.
Yes.
And he's still making a difference to this day.
Yes, he is.
Yes, yes. Very nice, very nice. So let's also, now who is this young lady? Hadia
Green. One of the things that's very interesting about her story is that, she was orphaned at a young age, raised by her aunt, lost her aunt to cancer, and her uncle was also diagnosed with cancer. Okay. And you remember as a young child, when you would think about something that you would really want to do to help make a difference, this woman was so inspired by the fact that she lost her aunt to cancer and then had her uncle diagnosed. She probably went into a very deep visualization and came up with the idea, I want to one day cure cancer. And the unique thing about this young lady is that she has one patent for photothermal nanostructure tumor therapy. In the long run, nano particles injected to fight and kill the cancer cell while avoiding the healthy cells. Now, we've seen things like in Marvel and DC Comics and some of these other science fiction movies that are made where nanotechnology is used and injected into people. Well, this woman actually developed the technology for that. And this technology is being used to help people who suffer from cancer.
Wow, that is tremendous. And that was born out of a passion for having lost her relatives. So she came up with something that really could make a difference. Not only that she lost them and had an uncle, but people after that as well.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
I'm focusing on women inventors, and most of the time we just talk about the Black men.
Correct.
You got to give the shout out to all the Black women who are struggling and studying in the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics field.
Yes,
they are more than capable of developing a lot of innovations, and more than 2 Black women should be inducted into the National Inventors Hall of Fame. And we need to change that narrative in our time.
Absolutely. And I'm pretty sure that that's what's going to happen.
Yes. So we also understand why it's important to use cable, long distance phone calls, how cables are buried underground in terms of, to protect them from
corrosion
and corrosion. Yeah. But this Black man, Walter Lincoln Hawkins, he was born in 1911, a little bit before our time.
Sure.
Died in 1992.
Yeah, that's about my grandmother's time. Exactly. 1913. Yeah.
And he was inducted into the National Inventors Hall of Fame in 2010. He has 142 domestic and foreign patents. He pioneered the polymers that are used to protect the cables that are strewn across the ocean, the ones that are buried underground. This prevented them from being destroyed by corrosion.
Yes.
So, and he worked for Bell Labs, as you know, one of the leaders in technology communications. Yes. So he's a very important inventor when it comes to telecommunications, as well as the cables that are buried under the ocean and in the ground. So
those are the ones that Russia may just destroy up in Ireland tomorrow or Thursday.
Well, we'll see what happens, because remember, satellite's also being used now, not just cables.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So tell me, go ahead.
In writing your book, what a couple of things that really surprised you in your research phase. So talk to us about some things that you saw that you didn't expect to see as a part of your research when you were following either the trademarks, the patent, or an invention.
Well, I found trademarks by Cab Calloway,
Okay.
trademarks by Oprah Winfrey,
Yes.
Michael Jordan, LeBron
Uh-huh.
James,
Yes.
the Supremes, Four Tops. Trademarks are not just used as a means of protecting a brand or a name. It is
Sure.
also used now, as we can see, in advertising, marketing, and case in point, when you look at the term hip hop,
Yes.
that has over 1,000 trademarks that are used globally around the world. And as you know,
Sure.
hip hop, that our young people listen to, and some of us old folks who like some good music.
I don't know those old folks.
It has become a brand. I was surprised to find that so many trademarks were under the term hip hop.
Wow.
And as you know, breakdancing,
Sure.
rap, all those things started in the 1970s.
Yeah.
And now hip hop is a global phenomenon that's now recognized as a leading music genre around the world.
Yeah,
so,
and it's found in places that we've never heard of, but they know about it.
China, Philippines, Australia, Europe, Central and South America. Hip hop is global. It has a global impact. Exactly. So that's something I was surprised to find. And the other thing I was surprised to find is that, the Bowflex that everybody used back in the day. They found an inventor from Ethiopia who was the designer of the Bowflex. I can't recall his name right now. He passed away a couple of years ago. But that Bowflex at one point was generating $400 million a year in revenue. Now there's a lot of different exercise equipment we can use. And at one point, I did have a Bowflex. I just no longer have it.
Hey, well, it just goes to show you just one good idea can make all the difference. And the other one that I find to be really fascinating is that little water gun thing.
Oh, yeah, Super Soaker.
Super Soaker. That thing, it really took off. Really took off.
Well, to just add on to what you just stated,
sure.
Lonnie Johnson was also inducted into the National Inventors Hall of Fame in 2021.
Wow. Just last year.
Just last year.
Yeah, that is tremendous. Yeah, for sure. But it just goes to show you that, some creativity can take a person a long way.
Well, it says that necessity is the mother of invention.
Yes.
And if we count all the things that our people were subjugated to in the 1800s and 1900s, it didn't stop them from creating and inventing things. And so some of them could not receive patents in those early part of the country's development. A number of them did file for patents during the 1800s to 1900s and 20th and 21st century. And my job is to be able to find that information, uncover it, and document it and print books about it.
Absolutely. That's a great way to do it. Now, speaking of books, how can people get your books?
Well, we're going to go to that last slide.
Yes.
And just to also mention, we can't forget what Dr. Katherine Johnson, who developed the mathematical calculation for NASA that was used in the Mercury, Gemini, Apollo, and also those calculations are going to be used for the future manned missions to Mars. This woman should also be inducted into the National Inventors Hall of Fame.
Absolutely. And I think she will be.
Definitely. And the book hit figures as well as the movie. I implore your audience to make sure they watch the movie and also make that a part of the reading list for this month and many months to come.
Oh, that is fantastic. And I know that they will. And I think probably everyone on here has seen that movie. So Keith, our time is coming to a close for now. I think you're going to be coming back, though, because there's so much more I know that you can share. But how can people get in contact with you? I know you have this up here, and you have some events coming up this month there. as well in New York?
Well, because of the coronavirus,
There
Omicron,
you go.
COVID,
Yeah.
I do have some events, but most of them are going to be virtual.
Virtual.
We're
Okay.
doing today.
Uh-huh.
I look forward to people getting in contact with me. I am available during the month of February, March, April, May, and year round to do these events. And I've done speaking events in Canada, the United States, and the UK virtually. So I am available. So if people want to get in contact with me, one way is to visit our website, which has a plethora of information in terms of inventors, books, and materials that we offer. So it's not only just my book. I have my book, Black Inventors Crafting Over 200 Years of Success. I also have the Black Inventors and Scientists series, which are workbooks that can be used by 3rd through 6th graders. I also have a Black Inventors book by Njeri Olatunji, which is a workbook for 4th graders. And I also have a poster by Will Jones.
Yes.
It's Miracles Happen. As you know, you have a copy of that.
Absolutely. It is amazing.
Eye-opener. It should be in every classroom or library in the United States and beyond. And I also want to give a shout out to Yvonne King. She's one of my leading book distributors at bookstore.net. So there's a number of ways you can get in contact with us, but primarily through globalblackinventor.com.
Yes.
And you can also reach us at Facebook, Global Black Inventor Research Project, Inc. You can reach me also by LinkedIn under Keith Holmes.
Yes.
And you can see I have an email address, kchomes50@gmail.com. And of course, you can reach us by phone, 646-610-1485.
Yes, awesome. I tell you, I'm still going through the book. And I like I stated, every time I go through it, I learn something new. And then I start doing my own follow-up to learn about how in the world did they come up with this. But they have those creative minds. And, many of them are so blessed as well, gifted. God blessed them with some gifts, and they take those gifts and they put them out into the world.
Well, it's interesting you say that. Inventors want to help change the world.
Yes.
And many of these inventions developed by our people, as well as the inventors from over 190 countries around the world, are developing things that can improve the lives of people. Yes. And that's what inventions really are made for. They're the creative side of, as you say, God-given talent.
God-given talent.
For them to develop something that can make a difference in the world.
Yes. And that's really what it's all about. And that's what we want people to take from this. The year 2022 is an amazing year, and we can invent some things now. We don't have to not do it. We can still do it in the midst of a pandemic, and it's happening. So that's all the other things that are coming as a byproduct of this pandemic. So many things will be invented, and so many patents and trademarks as well.
I'd like to add one other thing. Most of us think, especially when we're growing up, and I know you did the same thing. We all envision ourselves possibly becoming a sports star. I
was trying to be an astronaut.
Okay, an astronaut. But the chances of us being an NBA basketball player, and I'm not talking about a scrub, is 1 in a million.
Yes.
The chances of us becoming an NFL star or player in the NFL is 1 in 50,000.
Exactly.
Chances of us becoming a Major League Baseball player is 1 in 40,000. Chances of becoming a hip hop artist, someone who's recognized, is 1 in 10,000. But my calculation says our chances of becoming an inventor is 1 in 3,000.
Exactly.
I think I'll take that road.
Yeah, that's some pretty good odds there.
That's pretty good odds.
For sure. Absolutely. All right. Well, I tell you, I really enjoyed this. I'm going to have you come back on again, and we're going to do another project similar to this.
Okay.
And share even more, in the coming months. But I really want to thank you, Keith Holmes, for being a tremendous guest, sharing your book, Black Inventors. And I know it's going to make a difference in the lives of people who are listening to this, and those who are listening on the archive as well with Apple Podcasts when I get that out. So I want to thank you so much for being our guest today, and wish you continued excellence and continue to share your gift through this book and the projects that you provide, not only here in the U.S., but also in other countries as well. So thank you.
Paul, thank you so much for having me on as a guest and as a friend, and inviting me on this very important subject matter that unfortunately only occurs during Black History, but our history is more than a month.
Yes, it's every day. Every day since we've been alive.
And will be after we are gone.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So thank you very much. I also want to thank the viewers who are viewing live here on the live stream. Also, those who listen on the archive. I'll see you on the next episode of Wealth Academy Podcast, and have a tremendous, tremendous day. Black History Month, month of February, and we thank you all. So I'll see you on the very next broadcast. Have a great day, everyone, and I will see you on the next episode of Wealth Academy Podcast. Thank you so much, Keith.
Thank you, Paul.
All right. Have a great day.
You too.
All righty.